Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to BiblioTech on Air. I'm Rosanna.
I'm Ruby.
I'm Israel.
And today we have Roberto with us. Not only has he run our comic book club in the past, he's also made that recognizable jingle for the podcast. So thanks for joining us, Rob.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Alrighty, so for today's episode, we have a very good one. Probably one of my favorite. We are going to be talking about some comics today in response to a live action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. We will be reading The Promise and Azula in the Spirit Temple. These are both available on Hoopla, and disclaimer, these will contain spoilers as we will be talking about the comic, story, characters, etc.
Okay, so we're going to get into a summary for The Promise. The Promise was published by Dark Horse Comics and written by Gene Yang and Michael Dante and illustrated by the art team Guru Shiru. Follows Aang and friends as they navigate the challenges of peace building after the 100-Year War. Central to the plot is Aang's promise to Zuko to prevent him from mirroring his father's tyranny, testing their friendship against the backdrop of the Harmony Restoration movement aimed at removing Fire Nation colonies from the Earth Kingdom. The comic delves into themes of loyalty, identity, and the complexities of justice and reconciliation, highlighting the characters' struggles to maintain their ideals amidst political and personal dilemmas.
Yeah. So general thoughts about this one. What'd y'all think?
It's definitely a good launching point for the comic series because it comes right after the OG series ends.
The 100-Year War.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked it. It's been years since I've seen the show. Literally, I think I was in middle school the last time I watched Avatar. And so reading the comics, it took me way back. I remembered all the characters, remembered everything.
Nice.
And the comics are written so amazingly to where it's as if you're watching the show.
Yeah.
Right?
It felt
I
that way,
felt the
right?
same way.
Yeah.
It's very
Like-
organic.
Yeah.
Especially the humor. The
Oh,
humor
yeah,
really
like you
translated.
could
Come
see
on.
it.
Yeah,
like-
it translated through the comic book.
Yeah,
Like-
Aang's innocence and playfulness,
Uh-huh.
You were able to see that clearly.
Yeah, I really liked it. I didn't really have an expectation, but it exceeded my expectation. I only hope that this IRL version that's releasing does the same. I've heard mixed reviews though. So we'll see. Let's get into the questions. We have a couple of questions to guide our discussion here today. So, how do the characters confront their past and historical grievances? And what does this say about forgiveness and accountability?
My first initial thought obviously is Zuko. He's the one that's mainly dealing with his past and what his father did. But ironically, he ends up going to his father for advice.
Yeah.
The person he doesn't want to be like.
But in a way, his father does kind of point him in the right direction. He doesn't tell him rule with an iron fist. He's just do what you think is right. You're the Fire Lord now, which is honestly pretty solid considering he, almost wiped out everything.
But I think it gets a little twisted too, because then he was kind of in the realm of whatever you do is right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's
I mean,
you're the
from
boss.
his point of
If you
view,
kill someone, that's right.
If
You're
you
the
kill
Fire
someone,
Lord, you know?
that's right.
he gave it to Zuko in that aspect, but Zuko was not going to be okay, let me go
Right.
burn everything down. Zuko's no, I'm a good boy.
I'm going to take this with
I'm
a
a
grain
good
of
boy.
salt.
Right. There's some wisdom in there.
Yeah.
With chaos.
Yeah, I guess it runs in the family, He just, which we were kind of brought that up a bit. We were like, well, I think Israel, you were like, why didn't he go to Iroh for advice?
Yeah.
And
that
me
doesn't
and
make
Rob
any sense.
thought he was dead. Because in the comic, I was like, oh, okay, he's dead. Oh, I don't remember seeing him die. But I was like, that would make sense why the only person left is his father.
Well, I think, but in the first one too, you can see kind of Aang.
I know. I was about to mention it too.
Yeah,
I was like,
Aang.
Aang goes through his own turmoil.
Yeah. Because you can kind of see where he has to confront the past again in terms of I have to kill the Fire Lord.
Yeah.
Or should I not?
It's still following him.
Yeah, it's still falling. And then he still has kind of the similar conversation with Roku in terms of should I kill him or should I not? And it's I can't. It's against my rules. And Roku's do it.
And this is where Aang learns that Roku is the godfather or the grandfather
of Zuko.
I was confused about that.
Grandfather of Zuko's mom.
Yes. Yeah.
So
that's his great grandson.
Yeah.
Zuko's his great grandson.
But real quick, also on topic one, even you said, some of the minor stories, even with Toph has her own moment of past reflection where she's I'm trying to force y'all to be something, kind of how my dad
you're
is
right.
forcing
That's
me
true.
as well, and I don't want to do that, and that kind of gives them a little pep talk. They're like, you weren't forcing us. Like, you're the only person that believed in us.
I know.
So
Yeah.
that was kind of wholesome as well. So it really does show like every character had their own moment of like reflection and just like, you know.
That's true.
All right. So how does The Promise address themes of peace and cultural integration, and what key moments challenge and develop the characters' beliefs, which we did touch on a little bit with that first question. So again, going back to Zuko, he's trying to, you know, kind of roll everything under an era of peace, and the harmony restoration movement that kind of does, you know, in theory, bring that whole idea of peace to keep the nation separate, you know, everyone go back to where they belong, and that way no one's like conflicting with each other. No one, but
they were already meshed.
Exactly. Like
some colonies
it was over
were
100
already,
years.
Like one of the characters
That's
was
a whole
like,
generation.
why aren't we both? Like, you know, I'm Fire Nation and I'm an Earthbender. Like, we're both. You can't take that away from. Exactly. That little girl's an icon. But yeah, it's just like until he integrated himself and saw their lifestyle, he didn't realize, you know, like, oh, we're not bringing peace. We're, you know, rifting these. Like, you know,
Zuko was definitely confronted with that when he actually went to Yudao.
Yeah. And
he was like spending time with them, and that's where he was like, wait a minute. These people live their lives like obviously y'all were saying. I think over 100 years, like that's like what, 3 generations of people born, 4 generations
pretty
of people
much,
born.
Because you do see like the grandma, the parents, and then like,
forget it. Wipe them out.
It took me a while to kind of wrap my head around that idea, because I was just sound like, what's the big, like they're Fire Nation, get them out. But then when he goes in and he sees that they're enmeshed, I was like, oh, it was 100 years. Like, you know,
a lot's happened.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that makes more sense.
It just happened. The war ended, and they were like, let's go buy some real estate over here. But I mean, the same thing happens with Katara too, and Katara's the one that really talks Aang down, because Aang was like, no, harmony restoration, you know, 4 nations separate.
And that was because he went to Roku for advice, and Roku was like, things need to be separate. The nations need to be separate for a reason, because even Aang comes to the realization one is naturally going to take over the other, right?
So it's like with Iroh. Iroh was one of the very first people, like in the series, in the show, to point out like all 4 nations are kind of one. Kind of like with Guru Pathik, the one that trains Aang a little bit. But Iroh, because he develops like lightning bending or the redirecting from the water benders. He's one of, because he went to go, I believe, after like his son passed. Spoilers again. He went to go like kind of, you know, peruse around all the nations, and he took things from every nation, and he is very like, you know, we need to remember that we are all kind of one people in a way.
So he should have just gone to Iroh and it would have ended there.
Again, Zuko probably didn't want to bother Iroh.
He didn't want to. He's like, you know what, let me go visit my daddy in jail. That
would have made the comic probably like 10 pages though, so.
Yeah, well, with the topic on the dad, we'll switch around. We'll move some of these questions around. So how does Zuko's complex relationship with his father, especially his decision to seek out advice from him in person, reflect his ongoing journey of self-discovery and leadership? So we kind of touched on this already, but this will allow us to like go a little bit more in depth already.
I think it kind of has to do with Zuko wanting that, like, that recognition from his dad in terms of like always wanting to please him. Like that was his journey throughout the show, you know, that he wants to
appease him.
Yeah, he wants to regain his honor in terms of his dad. So I think that he goes to his dad to be like, well, I'm the Fire Lord now, like let me regain my honor as a Fire Lord and show you that I can be a good Fire Lord. And I think that's kind of what drives him to go talk to... I mean,
yeah, because his own people as well were like, wait, the Harmony Restoration Movement, you're turning your backs against the Fire Lord in this way as well. So that's where he was even more conflicted. So now that makes sense why he went to his dad, because his dad, like, all the Fire Lord people were trusted him and loved him. And now it seemed like he's turning his back on his own people. So he's like, okay, wait, how can I get that back?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it also makes sense. I mean, despite their relationship being very difficult, Zuko and Ozai's, it was still a father and son relationship. And I mean, daddy issues are a real thing, especially for a son. And he introduced legacy and culture and all these types of things. He's going to have to confront his dad. I think him going to his dad is a very, very good thing for him, for his development in the long term.
Yeah.
Because how old is Zuko at this point?
A year passed, so he's probably like 17, 18.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's
an 18-year-old king.
An 18-year-old king. Yeah, boy king. But doing that, and I think, and I hope in the other comics, I haven't read the other comics besides these two, that we see more of Zuko's development and be like, my dad did these things this way. I need to set myself apart from my dad. And I think, that's what this allows him to do. It allows him to start that path,
I mean, Rosanna,
Yeah, so
Yeah,
minor spoilers, but he does kind of like develop and grow more as a Fire Lord. But he's in this comic, you kind of see how shut in he is. He is kind of just trying to rely on himself until he goes to his dad. But at the end of this, he realizes, he can rely on his friends more too. And you see that more in other comics. And he does kind of reach out to Iroh even more to a point where Iroh sometimes takes over for him as like interim Fire Lord to help him out.
Love Iroh.
While he's like out doing other things to help.
Yeah. I think too, though, is that like Zuko kind of realizes at the end that he does know like what to do.
Yeah, he straight up says,
yeah, because he says I was right. And Aang is like, yeah, you were right. Like you knew what to do. It's just you needed to be. I needed to know,
My bad, bro.
Yeah, that's my bad. I was wrong on that one.
And we will be back after these messages. Are you a fan of our Libros and Libations BiblioTech's very own book club? Do you want to know what we read in the past or what we're planning on reading in the future? Well, check out Cloud Library's shelf, Libros and Libations, where you can read everything that we have read all together in the past and what we're going to read together in the future. And now we're back.
So a big part of not only the Avatar series, but the comics too, is the humor, because it does, balance humor and drama super well.
Yeah,
definitely.
So with that, the graphic novel continues the tradition of integrating humor and character quirks from the TV series. Can you all share a moment from The Promise that you found humorous and made you laugh, which there was plenty?
Yeah, I definitely have one. Zuko and Aang are at the tea shop, and he's like, "Oh, I have a new drink."
Oh yeah, and it's gross.
It's bubble tea.
Boba tea, right?
Yeah, it's boba tea, and they're like, "Oh, what is this, dude?" That
He's
part
like,
was so.
I'm way ahead of my time.
Yeah. He really was in so many ways,
Yeah.
right? But that part just cracked me up. I was like, "What the heck?"
So as a kid, obviously, I'm like, man, this show's hilarious. And then reading the book, I was like, oh, it's a little cheesy, but it's so funny. Like, it did make me laugh. So I'm just glad that I was able to appreciate it both as a kid and as an adult.
I think I can't think of one specifically, but I know like just the drawing of like when their face kind of like just goes down.
It just matches those
And,
expressions.
you're right, it just matches. But I can like again like I can just see, because I remember that in the show when it just like wah,
Yeah.
and then they like yell or something. I can see that. So seeing that in the comic, I can picture that to like come to life.
Yeah.
And that would always just crack me up, just because it was always so funny.
I wonder how it makes me think of like the show. Like, just, I don't know how you can replicate that in real life, obviously.
Yeah.
I do wonder how it's going to translate into like an IRL version. I don't know. I feel like it might be kind of cringe.
One of the things that they touch on here is a running gag in the show, how they always forget Toph is blind.
Yeah.
And they do it
yeah.
here too
Yeah,
as well.
Oh God, that brings me. I loved that part when they were going through the tunnel and they came out or whatever, and then it was black, and the girl was like, "Oh my God, I can't see anything" or something like that, and Sokko was like, "Talk gets really sensitive when you say that."
Or like there's something in the sky and they're like, Top's like, "Wow, I wish I could see it."
The fireworks. Which he's like, "You want to know what the fireworks sound like for me? Close your eyes." And then she just screams. But like, it's things like that hopefully they don't remove it from the show. Because if you remove that, then you kind of just have like this,
Bland.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the humor is just so present
The
in
humor
the
is
comics,
so
in the
good.
show. It's such a big part of Avatar, and it's something that's balanced so well where it's like, sure, they might say it's a kid's show, but it's also such an adult show too, that it meshes the themes so well.
Right.
Also, the part where Toph is like, she's like, "Oh, I found that being a teacher could be so fulfilling," and I think Sokka's like, "It's because you just want to yell at people." And she's like, "Yeah, it's just because I want to yell at people." Yeah. What does she call her students?
Lily
livers.
Lily livers.
Yeah.
Yeah, lily livers.
Like how she would call Aang Twinkle Toes all the time.
Oh yeah. I thought it was hilarious when when Sokka's like, oh no, you can beat those like the firebending students, and then like the teacher tells them like to do their formation, and they like
Oh yeah,
do this big
crazy.
old thing, and Sokka's just like,
What does he call himself? I'm bending.
A mental
motivational bender.
Yeah.
A motivational bender. Yeah. A motivational bender.
Sokka was so good in this comic.
He was.
Yeah, he
So
really was
good.
very prominent. Yeah,
He just kept,
all the characters were, but he really shone through.
yeah, he did.
He's one of those characters that embraces his flaws, or like, you know,
Yeah.
not a flaw, because not being a bender is not a flaw, but he, you know, a lot of people see that or like make fun of him for it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't bend, but yo, I got skill everywhere. I got game. I have humor. I'm a genius.
right, and he does point that out, right? That he's like, oh,
Yeah.
I led everyone in the Black Sun.
Uh-huh.
We killed an air fleet, like we took it down, and so it's really cool.
There's this final question that I think it's pretty important to discuss. It's so how did y'all feel about Aang's decision to sever ties with Roku's spirit? So I'll leave it like that because there's another questions in this question. But how do y'all feel? How do y'all feel about that generally?
I mean, it makes sense. Like, he has an old school way of thinking. Like, boom, just tie that out, and
Right.
because the world's evolving, it's becoming something different,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like Roku was kind of just stuck in the way things were before the war. So that's what made me think why he ended that.
It was very dramatic.
Yeah.
The panel in which it took place was very dramatic. Aang has a necklace, and he removes the fire bending, I guess, part of the necklace, like the little emblem, and he burns it. And I thought that was very dramatic, very like, I think it really translated through as for me as a reader, right? It's like, oh, this is a pretty big thing. Like, this is a pretty big thing.
But did he? I didn't understand. Like, did he? So he can never talk to Roku again, or
I don't
is it just
know.
like that was easy access to him?
Easy access.
Easy
kinda.
access.
Yeah.
Oh.
So Roku's still available.
Oh, I
Yeah,
thought
he's
Okay.
not like, you know, totally gone. Like, he can still talk to Roku. But I mean, that Roku was kind of like in the show, that's kind of been his guide the whole time. Like, you know,
Yeah.
he goes to Roku because that was a prior avatar. But you kind of learn Roku's not that great of a guy. Like, he's kind of expecting Aang to fix all of his mistakes. Granted, avatars typically do have to clean up for the last one, but like Roku was just like, no, you need to do what I couldn't. It's like, bro, if you had just done this in the beginning.
He says it Roku says it multiple times, you know, if I just would have killed him and yeah, dude.
You know, woulda, shoulda, coulda, but you know, Aang's gonna do it his way. He's not gonna do it just so you could feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
Roku, he's one of those characters where when the show was coming out, it's like, oh my god, this guy's so cool, and now it's just like, Roku, you kind of suck.
Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna lie. Roku's a badass. Like, Roku's freaking cool. Like, if I would
Roku.
prefer Roku over Aang.
What?
His bending,
whoa,
like,
Because it's very
No.
he's very traditional, and I kind of really like that.
Oh, like you would like
He's
if
very
Aang
powerful, you know, and I like
was
that kind
very-
of vibe.
he got
I
taken
don't-
down by a volcano, and Aang took out a volcano within the first season.
Volcanic
No.
gas.
So speaking of their power, and Aang's power specifically, when he enters the Avatar state, and they're at Young Dao or Yu Dao, and Aang like kind of like makes a wall.
Yeah, like it
around
kind of starts like cracking around
yeah,
it.
it just takes out the city, it lowers it and raises walls. Not super high, it doesn't look like super high, but dude, I was like, oh shoot, that was pretty cool. It reminded me of, I think it was of Kyoshi in the opening
Kyoshi.
scene of the show, where she like pushes the mountain or like a big piece of land
yeah.
like away.
That's
what it reminded me of.
just massive feat of power.
Yeah, dude. But yeah, I think I will. I think I do like Roku over Aang. I think it's because of Aang's a pacifist, right? Just naturally as an air nomad, and I like that. I like a avatar who can take charge.
I don't know.
I like an avatar with a vengeance.
I'm going to disagree with that because Roku did not take charge. He had so many times where he could have fixed all
he
of
did
it.
fail.
So
Yeah.
Definitely
Yeah.
one of his flaws was that he, you know, and Aang, you know, at least realizes, you know, it at a very young age that his relationships with people is a flaw of his. Roku didn't realize that until like he was already
Dead.
a seasoned avatar as well, like later on in the years, you know. So Aang has that. Aang definitely has that.
But I think it kind of shows Aang's growth too, in terms of like
Yeah.
he doesn't need
Yeah.
Roku anymore. Like
Yeah.
he can
Yeah,
kind of-
definitely.
he can kind of come up with his own way.
yeah.
you
Which
know?
is just a big parallel to Zuko too, because
Exactly.
Zuko was kind of like, I don't really need my dad anymore.
Mhm.
Aang was like, oh, I don't need Avatar Roku anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, on that topic, so the second part of this question says, how does it symbolize Aang's growth and independence as the Avatar? And what implications does this have for his understanding of duty versus personal judgment in the promise? And so it, meaning his decision to sever ties with Roku's spirit, right? So how does it symbolize his growth and independence? Pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
He
And-
growing.
yeah, for real. It definitely shows that he's becoming his own avatar,
Mm-hmm.
right? It kind of reminds me of back in the show when he's going around to figure out what to do with Ozai. He doesn't want to kill him, and so he calls upon his past lives. He speaks to Yang Chen. He speaks to
Kyoshi, Kuruk, Roku.
Yeah, he speaks to all of them, and it ends up he just talks to a sea turtle, right?
Lion Turtle.
Lion
you
Turtle,
put
there it
some
is.
respect on my boy's name.
Yeah, Lion Turtle, one of the OG or the OG.
One of the original benders.
Yeah, one of the
Mhm.
original benders. Yeah. But yeah, did you have anything more to say about this specific comic?
I mean, I thought it was really well done. Again, I
Mhm.
know I said it at the beginning, but
Mhm.
you know, just a really good way to keep on going with the spirit of the show, the
Mhm.
characters. If any critiques I could give it, maybe some of the minor characters, we probably could have had a better introduction to them, like or maybe a better recap of, like, you know, the freedom fighters.
Yeah, the
for
freedom
people who
fighters.
weren't really too aware of them in the show.
Mhm.
Maybe like that Sneers character or whatever.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
But I'm sure down the line, you know, that's, you know,
And the new leader is Smellerby, right? Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Smellerby?
Smellerby.
Yeah, Smellerby.
I like that Longshot was still alive. That was cool.
mhm.
Did he
in-
like look like he died in the show?
Yeah, well,
So-
like a spoiler too, but in the show, remember when Jet gets knocked out, and then they're in Bossing Say,
Mm-hmm.
and then Longshot's like, no, he's our leader. We'll
Oh,
stay with them,
yeah.
and they stay behind. So it's kind of like it leaves it very vague of like what
Mhm.
happens to them, but you see them back, which is pretty cool.
Well, you see Longshot back.
You seen Longshot, yeah,
He doesn't talk or what?
No.
No.
that's his theme.
Yeah, it's his thing. They just understand what he's talking about. And so this comic ends with Zuko bringing in Azula and being
Mhm.
like, let's talk about our mom.
Yeah, which is that's one of the big what ifs from the show. Like, what happened to
Yeah,
Zuko's mom? That's
yeah.
probably the
Mhm.
most asked question
Mhm.
to this day about the show.
And there's a comic that goes over that, right?
The Search.
The Search, which is also available on Hoopla as well with your BiblioTech library card. We read another comic, right? That centers around Azula. And that's Azula in the Spirit Temple. So just a quick summary. Azula in the Spirit Temple is written by Faith Erin Hicks, and it continues Azula in her destabilizing campaign against the Fire Nation and her brother, Fire Lord Zuko, or Zuzu, right? She calls him Zuzu throughout the whole time. But after a failed attack on her latest target, Azula finds herself in a mysterious forest temple inhabited by a solitary monk. Or is it something more mysterious? Azula must confront her past and finally face her chance at redemption. So we find out it's not a monk.
I was gonna say
It's a spirit.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we were having a discussion like, was it a spirit or is it a demon? Right? And I think, Rosanna, you had a good point about that we said.
That they don't really have demons. They're just
Mhm.
spirits. There's good spirits, bad spirits, morally ambiguous spirits.
Ko. Yeah, I will say, I will say Ko is so awesome. And I think in the Search, spoiler, Ko does make an appearance.
So, little teaser, if you loved Ko in the original series, you are going to have a great time with the Search.
Oh, nice. That's
yeah, love
exciting.
me some Ko. So we have just two questions to guide our discussion here. So Azula is often seen as a villain in the series. How does her visit to the Spirit Temple add depth to her character, and what vulnerabilities does it reveal?
She's lonely.
She has mommy issues.
She has daddy issues.
Mhm,
She has both.
She has brother
definitely both,
She has her whole family issues.
yeah.
I think it kind of shows a lot of because, yeah, she seems like a villain, very like sociopathic, very easy,
Mhm.
very down to like
Mhm,
really
mhm.
evil, down to the core.
Mhm.
But you kind of see here in the comic that she's just kind of like traumatized, you know, like
Yeah.
in terms where there's a part where she's like, oh my father made me into a weapon, like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know, and that kind of shows that like it's not really who she wanted to be, it's just what she was created to be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like a forced hand, like that's the card she was dealt. And so
Mhm.
I think that kind of adds that depth in terms of understanding that Azula is just a troubled teen. You know, she's
How-
not really.
Yeah. How old
evil.
is she?
She's like 15, 6. No, she's I think
She's
14,
younger than Zuko.
and then probably in these comics she's like 15 or 16. She's
Yeah.
younger. She's younger than Zuko.
That's kind of crazy. Like, you know, you're given all this pressure and responsibility. You know, you're upheld as a prodigy from a very, very young age. So Azula's journey to the spirit temple is unique for a character often detached from spiritual beliefs. Do you think this experience will challenge or change her views on power and control?
It's complicated with her because at the end, like typically with stories like these, I don't know about y'all, but you kind of expect, you know, the character to realize, you know,
yeah,
like,
to have some
okay.
sort of growth.
Yeah, and
from
maybe
it.
kind of start their path to redemption.
Yeah.
I was trying to think, like, did
But-
she learn anything from this? Like, did she take anything away from this experience?
I don't think
Do you
she
think-
No.
had any growth moments, but I think it did kind of make her realize, like, she's alone. She doesn't have a support system.
Yeah,
she
'cause
doesn't
her
have
People
yeah 'cause
left her.
She was looking to go find these people, the people trying to sabotage Zuko, the rest of her little group. And they were like, no, we need to go help our other friend who got captured. They do that. They're all celebrating that they're together. They don't even mention Azula. And Azula sees that and she's like, whatever, I don't need that.
Yeah.
I think you can argue that that's growth, because if it was, you know, if she is the way she is, she could have gone down there and been like,
And killed them.
I'm back.
You know what? That's very true.
You know,
That's
but
a very
instead
good
of
point.
instead of that, she kind of has that small redemption of just like, let him be. Like, I'll find someone else.
That's true.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Because she, definitely, if it was probably Azula from the show, she would have been like, I'm going to go torch everyone.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, for leaving me.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, she could have been worse.
Granted, it's probably not the ending that we were kind of hoping for, but that's, when you put it like that, Rob, that's like definitely a good, I guess,
Yeah.
I don't
notch
know,
on
but
her
then
belt.
it could just make her even more upset
true.
and grow
Yeah.
in the wrong direction.
She's very prideful. She's
Yeah.
a very prideful character.
Yeah. And that's also just a testament to how she was raised
Yeah.
and kind of Fire Nation stuff as well.
The good thing is that she's young, you know, and I think we all have our own experiences. I mean, I know this is just a comic and a show, but we all have our own experiences where, like, you know, we think one way and then we grow up. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
true.
We think differently. But I've also seen the opposite, where an individual will stay in their resentment and anger and pride. And man, I don't know why someone would want to live that way. Maybe nobody wants to, but it's just easier to live that way than versus confronting and
Yeah.
looking at things from forgiveness and, you know, all that type of stuff.
Mhm.
And in this comic, Azula doesn't really admit
Yeah.
like her,
Anything.
you know, her faults
Yeah.
or her wrongdoings.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have like an Iroh like Zuko has to rely on or to provide her with wisdom. So she doesn't have her quote unquote friends, you know,
Yeah.
May and Ty Lee. So I don't know. I think for Azula to grow, she would really need to have someone kind of like
Support.
Confront her.
support or
Yeah.
point her in the right direction.
It's a long road for Azula, and I hope they do a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see her story as an adult. I'd like
Definitely,
to, you know,
definitely, because we don't know anything about her in like the adult, you know,
Yeah.
in the adult gang or in the Legend of Korra comics. We don't know anything about her. Did she die young? Did she do her own thing? Did she just kind of pull a Toph and decide to become a hermit somewhere?
You know, it would be pretty cool if, you know how Aang in The Promise is battling, having to kill Zuko or not.
Mm-hmm.
If he has to kill Azula, like, dude, imagine that battle. Oh man, that'd be so
I was
cool.
thinking. I mean, that would make sense because, like, not every single character has this amazing growth story.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, I would like to see a character that just, like Israel said, like some of those people just stay stuck in their resentment and hatred, and they gotta die.
And the Avatar has the Avatar. Yeah.
That'll make the
Man,
world a
that'd
better
be,
place.
That'd be pretty cool. I because it makes sense for Azula's character. It makes sense for her to find, you know, peace and stuff like that. But I can see it going in that other direction,
yeah.
right? And that'd be pretty cool if, like, maybe not Aang, but maybe like another character,
Zuko
you know,
kill his own sister.
and like that they have to
Ooh.
battle. And I think this series could tackle that. I think
hope
it could. I think
so.
I think it could do a good job of it. It'd be pretty dark, but
Well, maybe it didn't, she gets institutionalized. No, that's what they were doing to them.
she
Yeah.
escapes
Like-
though.
In the beginning.
This
Mm.
comic shows us that she escapes that institution.
well, not escapes, but she's like brought out.
No. So at
Oh,
the end of the
that-
at the end
Sorry,
of the
I was
promise,
thinking about
right?
the promise right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the promise she's institutionalized.
Yeah.
In this one, she's
Yeah, Azula in the Spirit Temple, we learned that she escaped along with the other individuals.
Mm-hmm.
She escaped. I
Yeah.
thought
So, do you care for spoilers? Little background.
Nah, I don't.
No, go
No.
ahead.
Okay, so in the search, they have Azula in the gang for the search for Zuko and her mom. And at the end of it, there's a very emotional moment, and she takes off on her own because they're kind of like in the a spirit world or like very spiritual area.
Yeah.
And she just can't handle it, and she just bolts, and they cannot find her. And so for the next few comics, it's kind of like what happened to Azula.
So
and
she
then you
leaves
find out.
again.
Yeah, and then in Smoke and Shadow, you kind of see Azula again, and she's trying to sabotage Zuko and let
Yeah.
the new Ozai Society rise.
The new Ozai Society.
So then, what's the timeline? Like, if I wanted to read it right after the show and follow through to see the whole story of the characters until there's nothing left, how do I start?
So there's several out right now, and the good thing is they are all available on Hoopla and to an extent Cloud Library as well.
Yeah.
But Hoopla does have the omnibus collection, so if you want to read them all in one go, you're good right there. But so you have the one we started with, The Promise. We have The Search right after that, which tackles Zuko's mom. You have The Rift, focuses on Toph. I believe it's North and South. Then it's Smoke and Shadow, which is more Zuko and Azula centered again, kind of, new Ozai Society. And then you have Imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
And then somewhere in between there, that's where Azula
Imbalance
falls.
is the Korra one, right?
No, Imbalance is the last
Oh,
Aang related adventure we've gotten so far.
The complete end.
Not well, I don't know if it's the complete end. Hopefully they'll do some more, but for now that's like the last story.
Where does Legend of Korra fall? Is it like her upbringing?
So
Or-
Korra takes place 80 years after the events of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Aang's dead. She's the new Avatar. Society's definitely come a long way. It's
Oh,
more
yeah.
of a steampunk kind of.
We see
That's cool.
the Metal Bending Academy it's like they're now police.
Wow.
Police.
They're police. That's kind of an upsetting point about Korra, where it's like Toph became a cop. But with that, we are gonna go. Well, actually, I'm gonna throw in one quick question. If you guys could pick any kind of bending to do, what would y'all do? I gotta end it with that. 'Cause I need to know.
Fire.
Firebender.
You do it all with fire.
Growing up, I always wanted water just because I loved Korra. I loved her storyline.
Or
But
Katara.
actually, no, yeah,
Yeah,
Katara.
Katara.
Sorry, I
I thought you
didn't
didn't
know.
watch Korra.
No, I don't know. Probably earthbending, honestly. That seems pretty cool. Like, I feel like that's a really grounding one.
Literally, right?
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
What about you, Rosanna?
Earthbending. I want to do metal bending. Do you realize how much you could do with metal bending? Construction, like
Right.
housing crises. You
3D
could
printed.
solve them.
You just make
know?
houses.
No.
Recycling. There's so much you could do with earthbending and earthbending and metal bending. And I have a theory. Well, this is a whole thing where you could even maybe kind of do a type of blood bending with earthbending, but that's a whole nother thing.
Oh, because the minerals in the body?
Me and my friends have talked so much about this. Y'all have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Cool.
definitely earthbending with that metal bending.
Nice. So 2
aspect.
firebenders, 2 earthbenders. Pretty cool.
We
With
could
that-
take y'all.
I
Yeah.
think,
We
could
I
take
think we
it.
win.
With that being said, I would like to have a discussion, right? So the IRL version of Avatar: Last Airbender is coming out. By the time this episode is out, it would have been out. I might have binged it already. I would like to talk about similarities and, for at least the first book. But that might be coming. That might be coming soon.
So yeah, that's gonna end our very vibrant and fun discussion about again these 2 comics, The Promise and Azula in the Spirit Temple. Please go check them out along with all the other Avatar comics and Korra comics on Hoopla, and tune in for any future discussions Avatar related, just like Israel said. Again, I am Rosanna,
I'm Ruby.
I'm Israel.
I'm Rob.
and we'll catch you on the next episode.